everyone, and welcome to GRIDnet, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Adam Limerice, and with me is Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish, and a special shout out to our awesome Patreon supporters, Colin, Mark, Giselle, and Robin. Thank you for investing in Grid Network. We'll link to our Patreon in the video description below. And please feel free to comment in the chat room below and ask any questions. Tonight, we'll discuss Daniel Ricciardo officially leaving McLaren. A special look at the two racers handling their health differently. Matt White's grid history update, and three-time DTM champion Rene Rass trading Audi for two different manufacturers. We'll start discussing one of the worst kept secrets in the F1 paddock.
Yeah, and once Oscar Piastri turned down to see at Alpine replace Fernando Alonso, it became perfectly clear that McLaren was a front-runner for his services. While it hasn't been officially confirmed that Piastri will be a McLaren driver next season, it's now official that current McLaren driver Daniel Ricciardo won't return to the team in 2023. Both parties agreeing to mutually part ways. During his time at McLaren, Ricciardo has experienced some ups and downs, struggling to match his teammate Lando Norris in overall performance and in the constructors. But the main highlight of Ricciardo's tenure at McLaren certainly has to be his shock win in last year's Italian Grand Prix at Monza. The photo you see on the screen, courtesy of F1. So, Adam, considering last year's magical McLaren Monza win, did you ever imagine a year later we'd be talking about Ricciardo leaving the team he gave his first Grand Prix victory in a long time?
Well, Kobe, when I heard this news, I was kind of shocked and kind of wasn't. Daniel Ricciardo, only, like you mentioned, only has one F1 win last year at the Italian Grand Prix in Monza. Really hasn't done much at McLaren. So it's going to be interesting to see where Daniel Ricciardo races in 2023. He sure has a lot of options on where he could go race across the world next year.
Yeah, you're right. Daniel Ricciardo certainly has a lot of options for next year, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But I agree with everything you said. It's not really a shock, but it kind of is, considering that he got the victory last year at Monza, and it meant so much to McLaren. I'm wondering if that win actually bought him some extra time, because besides that Monza win, it really hasn't gone too great for Ricciardo at McLaren. And sometimes when you have a great legendary team and a very talented driver, when you put them together, you're not always going to get a successful peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And it's obvious now that the partnership between McLaren and Ricciardo it hasn't really been a great fit. And Lando Norris has really been the driver who's been carrying that team on his back, while Ricciardo will have some small successes here and there, with Monza being at the very top of the mountain there. But moving forward, McLaren felt that it was best to move on, and Daniel Ricciardo thought the same. So when you see that it's not gonna work moving forward, the best thing you can do is to part ways and find out what you can do, so both of you can benefit in the future. And after McLaren made the announcement about his departure, Ricciardo released a 2-minute video statement. He said things didn't work how they expected and thought it was best for both sides to move on. Literally, as I just said, Ricciardo's favorite memory was giving McLaren his first win since 2012, nearly a decade later. He still loves being in Formula One and still has that fire burning inside to compete, but he doesn't know what the future holds. According to Motorsport Magazine, McLaren CEO Zak Brown attempted to keep Ricciardo in the McLaren family by offering the third seat at Arrow McLaren SP in the NTT IndyCar Series. However, Ricciardo declined that offer as he evaluates possible options to stay in Formula One. In the past, Ricciardo has expressed a lot more interest in competing in NASCAR instead of IndyCar. He's a noted big fan of Dale Earnhardt Sr. Zak Brown even let him get a few demo laps in an old Earnhardt number 3 car at COTA last year, but it's not necessarily surprising that Ricciardo would turn down an IndyCar ride, because he's expressed a lot of hesitation of racing on the oval tracks. Is there a realistic chance Ricciardo stays in Formula One next year, or should he seriously begin evaluating other options outside of F1?
Well, Kobe, let's look at it. there's a seat open in Alpine in F1. Why? Because Fernando Alonso is leaving Alpine to go to Aston Martin. And another thing, this Project 91 that Team Trackhouse Racing is doing, we saw what happened to Kimi Räikkönen Sunday at Watkins Glen. It from what Adam Stern from the Sports Business Journal reported, a number of drivers from F1, IndyCar, and the FIA World Endurance Championship took an interest, to this car. And Kobe, you mentioned Daniel Ricciardo is a huge Dale Earnhardt Sr. fan. How cool would it be to see Daniel Ricciardo behind the wheel of the Project 91 Team Trackhouse Chevrolet? Daniel Ricciardo could live out his NASCAR dream and turn it into a reality. So those are two options for me that I could see Daniel Ricciardo going in 2023.
Yeah, Daniel Ricciardo certainly has quite a few options out there, and adding more what you were talking about with that report from the Sports Business Journal, Adam Stern, with Justin Marks telling him that 20 some drivers from F1, IndyCar, and the WC are looking at this Project 91 to do a one-off. And I knew there would be a lot of interest from drivers from other disciplines of racing to try to get in the Project 91 Cup car. But I'm actually kind of blown away that at least 20 drivers are interested in that. I'm actually surprised that it's quite that high, but it would be very exciting to see a lot more great racing talent from around the world to compete in NASCAR. And like you were said, Adam, Daniel Ricciardo's been a long time NASCAR fan, especially of Dale Earnhardt Sr. And this will be a wonderful opportunity for him to live out his NASCAR dream and finally compete in a NASCAR Cup Series race. And Project 91 would give him a chance to do that. I know Justin Marks recently said that he plans to fill this car 6 to 8 races next year. I wonder if they can find the resources and the people. And since they have enough interest, I wonder if they consider expanding it to as many races as they possibly can, because it seems like the interest is truly genuine from drivers from around the world reaching out. And if you can try to get some F1, IndyCar, sports car racing drivers in there who are well known in the motorsports world, I think it will only benefit NASCAR in the long run. On Twitter during the NASCAR race at Watkins Glen, I asked the question, how many of you are watching NASCAR today? Just because of Kimi Räikkönen, got quite a handful of responses. People saying they were watching NASCAR for the very first time just because Kimi was in the race. If we get that same level of I guess new viewers from those other racing series who followed the driver in that particular series, when they come over to NASCAR, that's only going to help NASCAR grow, not just nationally, going to help them grow internationally as well. And everybody is a winner. There were a lot of people in Europe were following Kimi's progress until he unfortunately had to retire from the race after that crash accident, the bus stop. But Daniel Ricciardo, I think he would be a perfect fit for Project 91, maybe potentially at Circuit of the Americas, since he has experience there racing in the United States Grand Prix throughout his F1 career. So I think that would certainly be something to keep a major eye on.
And let us know in the comment section where you think Daniel Ricciardo is going to race in 2023. And now, moving on to some sports car news. 4-time NASCAR Cup Series champion Jeff Gordon is returning to the driver's seat on Labor Day weekend. Gordon will compete in an IMSA-sanctioned race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course in the Porsche Carrera Cup North America, presented by the Cayman Islands. Gordon will drive the number 24 Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car and be reunited with his former championship-winning crew chief, Ray Evernham. Gordon's racing return comes at an interesting time at Hendrick Motorsports. Plans to take NASCAR's next-gen car to Le Mans next year in a special Garage 56 entry. Could Gordon be a part of the driver lineup at Le Mans in the photo you see on the screen, courtesy of IMSA. Next, here's Kobe with some news about NASCAR star and a MotoGP star dealing with their injuries.
And when you look at NASCAR's Kurt Busch and MotoGP's Marc Marquez, both racers are going through injuries and trying to make it back on the track. For the last several weeks on Grid Tonight, we've been providing updates on this guy right here, Kurt Busch's progress. After suffering a concussion during a wreck in qualifying at Pocono, Busch hasn't been cleared to return to action yet, and he's missing the remainder of the NASCAR Cup Series regular season, which comes to an end this weekend at Daytona International Speedway in the Sunshine State of Florida. It's unknown if Busch will return during the playoffs, but he's taking things slow to ensure he makes a full recovery instead of rushing back too soon. And the photo you see on the screen, courtesy of Kurt Busch's Twitter account. Now we have Marc Marquez, who has a recent history of taking a more aggressive approach when recovering from injury. In 2020, Marquez broke his right arm, had surgery, and tried to make a quick return to racing before proper healing could take place. It didn't really go well when he got back on the bike, hurt his arm again, which required a second surgery and then a third later on. Some criticized Marquez, arguing that he tried to come back too soon and ended up worse because of it. Since then, he suffered from double vision from a high side crash earlier this year, and it was announced that Marquez will likely miss the remainder of the 2022 MotoGP season to have a fourth operation on that right arm. Last week, he spoke to the MotoGP media for the first time since his surgery, and he made a comment that really raised some eyebrows and some questions. He's looking at possibly getting back on the bike and racing again before this year ends. Saying when you feel like you're 70 to 80% ready, that's when he feels like he'll start riding because he doesn't want to wait until he's 100% ready to go race. And the little graphic you see right here of Marc Marquez, courtesy of MotoGP. But earlier today, we received some additional news that Marquez's medical team cleared him to intensify his training program, adding more weight and introducing more varied exercise into his routine. He's also been approved to start training on the motorcycles again to understand the condition of his right arm with further context. His team of doctors are pleased with the healing and recovery of his right arm. And one of his doctors, Dr. Joaquin Sanchez Sotelo, said, "Today, I had the opportunity to evaluate Marc Marquez in regard to his surgical procedure recently performed at the Mayo Clinic. Fortunately, Marc Marquez has regained a great arc of motion and has recovered well from a muscular perspective as well. Today, he underwent radiographs and a CT scan that showed complete bone union." And the photo you see right here of Marc, courtesy of him. Adam, what's it been like watching these two accomplished racers battling two completely different health situations handle their respective fight to return to the racetrack?
Well, Kobe, looking at what Kurt Busch has done, it's smart. It's very, very smart. He's taking it one step at a time, which is the right thing to do. He's doing what his doctor says, and when he knows he can return to the number 45 car from 2311 Racing in the NASCAR Cup Series, he'll know it. He'll have to go through extensive training, probably some work on a simulator, and then testing a car before his doctors can clear him to go back on track. Now looking at Marc Marquez, to me, he said he wants to, when he's 70 to 80%, to jump back on the bike. No, that is too soon. Because what happens if he has another injury again? Getting hurt his same arm again. What's going to happen? Because he's going to have to retire. But I'm glad Marc Marquez is doing well. And with this latest update from the doctors, I'm very happy to see that. So hopefully we'll see Kurt Busch behind the wheel of the number 45 car sometime this year. And next year, hopefully we'll see Marc Marquez return to the MotoGP grid.
I will say, Adam, I'm really glad we got the update from his doctor just a few hours before the show, because before that update, I was actually thinking something completely different of what I was going to say tonight about Marquez's situation. And it's very encouraging that the doctor is clearly seeing Mark arm is healing well and making great progress where he can intensify his training in an effort to return to MotoGP racing maybe later this year if all the doctors feel like it's the safe thing to do. And I know Mark received a lot of criticism last time around, handling that arm. You break your arm, you have surgery, you try to get back on the bike almost immediately, and look what happened. You end up making things worse and missing a lot more time than you would have missed if you had just listened to what all the doctors had said. But seeing what the doctor said today, I think that's a step in the right direction for Mark Marquez. So without this additional context, I would have probably said tonight, Mark, what are you doing? Haven't we had this discussion before? But the doctor really, silenced some of those doubts that I have, and I'll just say it'll be really smart for Mark to continue listening to his doctor's advice, and when they feel like it's the safest for him to return to MotoGP, he should. And it's no surprise that Mark wants to get out there as soon as he can. He's a racer. It's in every racer's blood. They want to be out there competing at all times. They don't want to miss a single race, and I know it's literally killing Marquez inside that he has to miss all of these MotoGP events. And obviously he's out of championship contention this year, so he would just be going out there for literally the love of the sport and to be back out there competing. And I feel that fire that Daniel Ricciardo talked about inside of him, to be competitive, just doing what you love. And if Mark Marquez continues to listen to his doctor's advice and continue to have a great recovery and try to be as close to 100% as he can, not 60%, not 70%, not 80%, then I think Mark Marquez will be okay, because he doesn't need to keep injuring this arm, or who knows, his MotoGP career might get cut short if he doesn't continue to listen to the doctor. And that would be quite a shame, because Mark Marquez has accomplished so much in MotoGP, and I feel like there's still a lot more he can accomplish before he hangs up his helmet and bike for good and getting back to Kurt Busch. I think Kurt is taking an extremely conservative position here, which is really great. We saw Dale Earnhardt Jr. open up about his situation with concussion. I feel like that had a lot of effect on not just the NASCAR garage, but the entire motorsports world, to keep your health in check. And if something's not right with your head, you need to get it checked. And if you're diagnosed with a concussion, you need to listen to everything the doctor says, because if you haven't recovered from a concussion, you try to get back in a race car and still experiencing those concussion like symptoms, you can become a danger, not to yourself but everybody else out there on the racetrack, because when you're racing, you need to make sure that your reflexes are as sharp as they can. And with the concussion, your reflexes are obviously not going to be as sharp. And at a place like Daytona, where NASCAR is going this week, you certainly don't want to still be experiencing concussion like symptoms and be out there in the draft, because things happen so fast, like within seconds. You need to make a split-second decision in the draft, and if you make a mistake, you can end up causing a really big wreck. So I think Kurt Busch has handled this situation extremely smart. And right now he's locked into the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs with only 15 winners, so we could potentially see 16 different winners. So Kurt Busch doesn't have to worry about getting knocked out of the playoffs. But if Kurt is still not able to be clear in return for the playoffs, we're still unclear what NASCAR is going to decide to do. If they're still going to keep him in the playoffs, if we're just going to have 15 drivers in the playoffs, or the next driver out in points, are we just going to move them up into the playoffs? And that's something that we'll figure out at a later date, especially if Kurt is not able to return. And next, shifting over to Formula E, with Sebastian Buemi and Max Gunther departing the team, Nissan unveiled a brand new Formula E driver lineup for next season. Norman Nato and Sasha Fenestras will replace Buemi and Gunther. Nato ran full-time in Formula E for Venturi during the 2020-21 season and sat out nearly the entire season that just wrapped up before he replaced Sam Bird at Jaguar during the Seoul E-Prix race weekend. Meanwhile, Fenestras will make the move over from Japan to drive for Nissan in Formula E after racing for Toyota in Super Formula and Super GT. Fenestras made a surprise Formula E debut in the second Seoul E-Prix race, replacing the injured Antonio Giovinazzi. And speaking of the driver known as Italian Jesus, Haas F1 will run Giovinazzi in free practice one sessions at the Italian Grand Prix and the United States Grand Prix at Coda. And the photos you saw, courtesy of Nissan and Haas F1. Next, here's Matt White with a grid history update.
Hi everybody, Matt White here. It's that time of the week again where we bring you a news and results roundup from the weekend that was in motorsport, particularly busy one as well. We'll start with NASCAR. They were at Watkins Glen, of course. Kyle Larson sweeping the weekend, winning in the Xfinity Series on Saturday and in the Cup race on Sunday. On two wheels, MotoGP were at the Red Bull Ring in Austria. Pecco Bagnaia winning his third round in a row at the Ducati circuit. They've only been beaten there once in the last few years. Good racing in Moto2 and Moto3 as well. Ayagura winning with a last lap battle against his teammate in Moto2, and Ayumu Sasaki won in Moto3 after having two long lap penalties and came back to win. Brilliant ride from the Japanese. Down in Australia at Sandown over the weekend, we had the Supercars Championship. Will Davidson breaking through with a win, a terrific win as well on Saturday. Couldn't hold a candle to Shane Van Gisbergen on Sunday, though he took 2 wins and now has an over 500-point championship lead as they head to New Zealand in a couple of weeks' time. Super 2 was traditional Super 2. It was fast, furious, and, well, crash and bash. Declan Fraser got the win on Saturday and Matt Payne winning on Sunday. In Porsche Carrera Cup, there was a win for Dylan O'Keefe in the first race and Aaron Love getting 2 more victories to add to his tally in both of Sunday's races. Toyota GT86 was also in support. Zach Bates getting 2 wins and Jared Hughes, the other, his first win in the category. And the Aussie Racing Cars Championship finished their season at Sandown over the weekend. The champion was crowned. It was Josh Anderson, so congratulations to him for Team Cool Drive. He didn't win any of the races on Sunday. They went to Joel Heinrich, Ryan Reynolds, Cody Garland and Cody Brzezinski, but it's Josh Anderson that comes away with the 2022 Aussie Racing Cars Championship. In Japan at Motegi, there was 2 very wet races for Super Formula. Naoki Yamamoto winning on Saturday and Yuhei Sakaguchi winning on Sunday. And keeping it open wheel, Gateway IndyCar at the weekend. Joseph Newgarden getting yet another win for the season and one at Gateway. Matthew Brabham won the Indy Lights race and Salvador de Alba winning in Indy Pro 2000. That brings us on to the Endurance Performance Index. There was plenty of stuff going on over the weekend. We'll stay in Japan at Sugo, where GT World Challenge Asia were in action. 2 races, Yokomizo and Fujinami winning on Saturday, and Hoshino and Fuji winning on Sunday. At Road America over the weekend, a double win for Russell Ward and Philip Ellis in the 2 GT World Challenge America races, adding to their championship push, and it was a good one as well. And at the Lausitz Ring in Germany, GT Masters were back after their summer break. Christian Engelhardt and Alchen Guvan winning on Saturday, and Chris Meese and Tim Zimmerman winning on Sunday. So let's have a look and see what it does to the top of the Endurance Performance Index. Raffaele Marciello got a 3rd and a 5th over the weekend with his teammate for the weekend, Danny Junkandaya. So he has now pulled away from Jules Gounon, who only got a 10th place in the second race on the weekend. So it's an extended lead for Marcello over Gounon. They were the only 2 guys at the very top of the championship to run over the weekend. Christopher Mees popped himself up into 11th place with that victory in race 2. This weekend in the EPI, we've got the European Le Mans Series back after their summer break. We've also got DTM back after their summer break, and the IMSA GT only race at VIR to add to the scoring. Along with that, it's another busy weekend with Formula 1 back after their summer break. It's the Belgian Grand Prix with all the trimmings. NASCAR heads to Daytona. That's going to be a spectacular race on Saturday night to determine the playoff contenders. And it's British Superbikes in the traditional August bank holiday slot at Cadwell Park over the weekend as well. Bring you all the results from those races and another EPI update, which we expect there to be some changes in the top 10 coming this week. All that to come with me next week.
And last week on Grid Tonight, we reported that Rene Rass was leaving Audi's factory driver lineup after a decade together filled with wins and championships. Now we're learning about his new home. Rass will become a BMW factory driver in 2023. We'll learn more about his official racing program next year at a later date, but his experience in sports car racing should be very beneficial for BMW, especially with all his years racing GT3 cars, prototype experience to an LMP1, LMP2, and DPI. And especially when you think about BMW's new LMDH car debuting next year, and the photo you see right here, courtesy of BMW. So Adam, with Rene Rass switching from Audi to BMW's factory driver lineup, and Team WRT also trading Audi for BMW. Another story we reported on last week. How significant is it for BMW to get the best customer team and best driver, both from Audi?
Well, Kobe, I think it's a grand slam for BMW. You take a look at all the success w, that WRT has had, and think about all the success that Rene Rass has had. He's a 3-time DTM champion. He has so much experience, like you said, in sports cars. So next year, BMW is coming along with this new LMDH program. Rene Rass. Could we see Rene Rass at, say, the 24 Hours of Daytona or Le Mans or one of these big races behind the wheel of a BMW LMDH car? It could happen.
Yeah. I was sorry about that. Had a little connection issue on my end, but getting back to what you were just talking about, Adam, it's certainly a great time to be BMW. And I don't know how Audi was able to let their best customer team and one of their best drivers over the years go. This is a major blow for Audi's program to lose Rene Rass and Team WRT. But I certainly think that Rass's experience on the sports car side will certainly help out BMW, especially when they transition to this new era of prototype racing, and maybe we'll see Rene Rass be able to run some sports car races in that new LMDH prototype, and possibly some BMW GT3 races all around the world. And Rene Rass is certainly going to be a very, very busy driver within the next couple of years. And last weekend, Grid Tonight also reported on rumblings inside the Formula E paddock about Rass potentially returning to the grid next season. And yesterday it became a reality when McLaren announced that he's going to drive for its Formula E team next season. Another driver McLaren CEO has brought on board, but no doubts where he'll race in the McLaren family like the other drivers. But it's official. Rass will be a McLaren Formula E driver. Rass has competed in Formula E in the past, so he brings experience to a McLaren team taking over the program that Mercedes left behind. Is Rass the right driver to help this program get off the ground running due to his Formula E experience and understanding of how the championship basically works?
Yes, I do believe Rene Rass is the right driver at, for this new McLaren Formula E team. And now we can say one piece of the puzzle involving McLaren is now official. So we don't have to worry about where Rene Rass is going. But there's several other drivers from McLaren that they don't know where they're going next year. So it's going to be interesting to see how everything develops. So Rene Rass going back to Formula E next year in their brand new cars, I think it's the right move for McLaren.
Yeah, and with McLaren bringing Rene Rass on board, also raises the question: is what's going to happen with Felix Rosenqvist? Because in the months and weeks that we've been following this entire McLaren driver dilemma with all the contracts and all the different drivers that have been bringing on board, it seemed like Zach Brown might want to take an exit Formula E driver and bring him back to the series. Felix Rosenqvist is currently driving for McLaren's IndyCar program and put Rosenqvist back in Formula E because of his experience. And now with Rass, who has Formula E experience, you're wondering, is McLaren going to go with two experienced Formula E drivers right off the bat? Are they going to just rely on Rass experience and maybe bring in a young driver who hasn't raced in Formula E? Because you can certainly get by with one experienced Formula E driver and one rookie to the series coming in, but two experienced driver that would make a lot of sense. So I'm wondering if Rene Rass teammates will end up being Felix Rosenqvist, or could Felix Rosenqvist potentially, stay in the IndyCar and not race with the Arrow McLaren SP and just break away from McLaren altogether? I think the signing of Rask going to McLaren's Formula E definitely raises a lot more questions about this crazy, silly season year all across motorsports. It's not just F1, it's not just IndyCar, it's not just Formula E. It seems like all of these three series, are very closely connected together. Where one domino falls, it's going to affect what happens in another series.
And we'll have, and make sure you subscribe to Grid Network here on YouTube, as well provide all the news regarding which McLaren drivers are going to be racing where next year. And now it's news from Formula 2. Tatiana Calderon will return to F2 competition this weekend at Spa-Francorchamps and the rest of the 2022 season. Calderon started off the year racing for AJ Flight Racing in the NTT IndyCar Series on the road and street course events. But her IndyCar program ended early when her funding from Rocket dried up. So she's back in F2 for the first time since 2019, driving for Sean New Racing System alongside Enzo Fittipaldi. She's back at the same track, Spa, that claimed the life of her late F2 teammate, Antoine Hubert. The last time F2 raced here. So it'll be an emotional weekend in the F2 paddock. And the photo you see on the screen, courtesy of Formula 2. Another edition of Grid Tonight is in the book. So here's Kobe with the wrap up.
And yeah, wow. I can't believe Formula 2 is actually returning to Spa for the first time since Antoine Hubert tragically lost his life that day. It's certainly going to be an extremely emotional weekend for Formula 2. That was such a sad day. I remember when that happened when I was in college. I just woken up at 10:30. I checked my phone looking at Twitter, and I see a lot of people were upset about something in the F2 race. Then I saw it happen. Then we got the unfortunate news that Antoine Hubert had passed away. That was such a horrible day for the motor racing community, and we'll certainly be paying attention to all the Formula 2 action this weekend at Spa-Francorchamps, their emotional return to that particular racetrack. And that'll be it for tonight's episode of Grid Tonight. Please be sure to like and subscribe to Grid Network here on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We encourage you to take 5 minutes after our show and consider joining our Patreon. Invest in Grid Network to keep us on the air well into the future. Do you want to buy me a coffee? Click the link in the video description below and you can buy a drink for your favorite on-air talent. Here at Grid Network, want to give a big shout out and thank you to Edward Hunter from Formula Zone, Amber and Zachary for buying us one. Greatly appreciate it. Any amount will help us continue growing our motorsports media outlet. Visit public.com, also known as the stock market social media home. The link below and referral code GRIDnet gives you $5 to invest immediately. Public.com will allow you to connect with your friends. You can make new friends and use tools to learn how to properly invest in the stock market. And looking at our schedule coming up, be sure to check out a brand new episode of Women in Motorsports later this week. Then Saturday, we're going to be on the air for Grid Live pre-race at noon Eastern. And then Sunday, Grid Live wrap-up after the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship Michelin GT Challenge at Virginia International Raceway. For Adam Limerick, I'm Cubby Lambert from the Podium Finish. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDNET for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.